Hello, my dear friends. How are you? I hope I find you all in good health and safe and sound. Welcome. Thank you for joining me here. I'm Mari Theriger, and today I would like to tell you about the healer's knife in Swedish traditional folk magic. I know in this channel I often deal with historical and archaeological evidences, and this one might sound just a little bit strange, especially for the new subscribers, but this is historical too. There are several surviving documentations of black art books, as I have spoken about in the previous video. And this is part of culture, tradition, and history, and it's always interesting, at least I find it interesting, to find and come about the similarities between witchcraft traditions by comparing the evidences we have. And before I make a couple of decisions I have in mind in relation to this channel and the future of this channel and the future of my work, which I shall speak about soon enough on another video, I would like to leave you with information that may be useful to you, as I know many of the subscribers of this channel, according to you, are either practicing or practice or learning or want to introduce some form of traditional folk magic in their lives, or even studying this in university, in academic works. And according to you, many of my past videos on the subject have helped you. So I think this one today may come to be useful, but I warn you beforehand that the evidences are too little and hard to come by, but we can at least have an idea about the healer's knife in Swedish traditional folk magic. So, picking up where we left off in the previous video about the black art books, some of you and some of my patrons were eager to know more about the healer's knife, Botarkniv, and here I am today to pass on this information as far as I was able to gather. So, a few years back, if you remember, I've made a video about different ways and methods of obtaining magical power. I don't remember if I spoke about obtaining magical power through objects, so here we go. This is, of course, for cases where magical power is not inherited as something hereditary in a family. So there are many external means to obtain magical power, as I've pointed out in that older video and according to the several sources I've been consulting. So that includes obtaining magical power through objects. And this is also noticed in animistic societies, of which I've spoken in this channel as well as in traditional folk magic of many cultures. One of such examples, as I was saying, is found in Swedish traditional witchcraft, where even though it was assumed that magical power would reside in a cunning person due to the hundreds of accounts of the use of their own bodily fluids, such as blood, urine, spit, and so on and so forth, for magical purposes, we also notice that magical power resides in objects, particularly objects created for the very purpose of holding magical power, or through them obtaining magical power. In fact, in several cases, the cunning person, the sorcerer, the magician, the witch, would only remain powerful for as long as such objects remained in the possession of such a person. There's a variety of objects, from natural objects like stones or gems, even types of wood and such, but there are also objects that were created. One of such objects is the healer's knife, Botarkniv, a common instrument imbued with power. This magic knife could be the source of healing power, just as it could serve to curse someone, among other works of magic. Many accounts show that knives were part of the sorcerer's tools of the trade, and this knife was typically called a healer's knife, as I've said, even though it wasn't just used for healing. It could also be called trollgudkniv, or a sorcerer's knife. So, such a blade could also be used to obtain magical ends. For example, a blade might reveal a witch in a whirlwind by stabbing the ground with it. I've picked this particular example because I think it's quite curious, because this example is because of an older belief that is already noticed in Old Norse society, actually, the so-called Gandr, which I've spoken here previously, and there are many meanings to it depending on the context, some of which is either a magical projectile or the very mind of the witch, the emissary, or a sorcerer that is sent out, and this could be for a variety of reasons, cursing a person or causing harm, to find someone or something, find an object, to steal or obtain something. And this belief was carried out until the modern period, and it's still noticed in some Nordic magical traditions as the very spirit, consciousness, or magical projectile of a sorcerer that takes shape, particularly noticed in the form or in the shape of air, visible air, and wind, like a whirlwind. So it could manifest itself in a whirlwind, right? Hence the example I have given of using a magical blade to pierce or stab such a wind or the ground where the whirlwind exists, in order to reveal a witch. To reveal if such a wind is the magical projection of a witch, because it may have been manifested due to ill intentions, and one must protect itself against such sendings. So this is a very old belief, actually. But the healer's knife was something to be expected among the cunning persons, klukfolk, right? Now, materials such as lead obtained from church windows were considered to provide magical efficacy, not being magical in nature, but providing magical efficacy, as well as dirt or bones from a gravesite. So such materials could become magical items, or from them creating something that is the magical item itself, that provides power to the cunning person who holds it. The aid of functional objects was required in the performance of magic, according to the sources, obviously. So molten lead or wax was poured into a pail of cold water, for instance, as an example, and from the shapes that the wax or lead took when meeting the cold water would suggest the image of the thief when the magical performance aimed at finding a thief, or the qualities of the steam given off would suggest the cause of the malady when looking for the ailment to perform the cure. Just some examples, right? So it's important to take into consideration that it isn't just pouring materials into water, as the examples I have given previously, and for good reason, and things are simply revealed. That's not how it works, apparently. The sources suggest scrying, either by the power a person already possesses, or through incantations spoken, or the very use of one's black book, where the magical actions were recorded, noted down by the practitioner. Thus, the very book that contains the notes of the magical practitioner in itself becomes a magical item, a source of magical power. However, the healer's knife was often used to stir the waters of the container counterclockwise, and thus the knife seems to be a conduit of magical power. Sorry. As far as I was able to gather, it seems the healer's knife infuses the water with magical power, and with the combinations of materials and rituals, it manifests the wanted effect. There are accounts in which fresh water, the recitation of verses, and the motion of the knives in the water were all a preparation for the ability to divine by scrying, a process of gazing to obtain images that hinted at hidden truths. Well, I'm guessing you want to hear more about the fashioning of an iron or steel blade for the use of works of healing. So the healer's knife, as I said before, was an important part of the paraphernalia of the cunning person. As such, the way you fashion it is important for its eventual use and efficacy in magical and healing procedures. It is this knife, as we get from the sources, that the sorcerer would be able to, for instance, locate and bind the source of an illness could consecrate brandy for scrying purposes, could sanctify space within a magical operation, could take place and focus their will at the location of a sore or wound. So one thing is to be taken into consideration, right? There's a particular taboo. There's one particular taboo among many, but I'm going to speak about this one concerning this knife, as it is the knife. This very knife must not have been used or being used in slaughter. This means of animals. So this is not a blade to be used in the sacrifice of animals, for instance. And I'm specifically saying this because nothing actually says anything that it mustn't be used to kill a person, because there are actually accounts in which a person defends themselves from a thief or from someone who tries to hurt them and kill them, and with the use of a blade, random blade, in self-defense, the person kills the attacker, right? And it is this blade, this very blade, henceforth, after the killing, in self-defense, becomes a magical item, the healer's knife. So that's quite interesting. One takes a life and becomes a powerful healer. So I always like to remind you that nowadays, in many ways, it is fortunate that witchcraft has become something far more safe, or rather less gruesome, albeit quite romanticized and glamorous, which is a pity. But, well, our ancestors' type of witchcraft truly wasn't for the faint of heart. And I think it's important to remember that. But anyway, moving on to the good stuff, the construction of the healer's knife required that the tang extend through the length of the handle, which was to be of black or dark wood. The blade was to be of ferrous metal, and the wooden handle was often to have a certain number of brass nails in specific places as ornamentation. So this is very animistic, right? The making of a magical tool for aiding in works of magic, not deprived of taboos, and the owner's own intentions or will imbue the item with power. In the sources, it says that the connection between practitioner and the Botarkniv, the healer's knife, was quite strong, to the point that should another come and try to carry it off, it became both heavy and slippery, making it difficult to hold on to. Or so the sources tell us, right? Upon the making of the blade, the sorcerer could scry in liquor of various sorts, as long as it was previously consecrated by the cunning person with the knife held in the left hand, stirring the liquor counterclockwise. But let's take a dark turn here. As I said before, if I'm not mistaken in the previous video as well, that the healer's knife wasn't just used for healing purposes, to cure ailments and stuff like that. There are also several malevolent cases in which the sorcerer's knife was used in the execution of magic to cause harm or to curse. As an example, the healer's knife could be used to stab a footprint to cast a curse upon the person whose footprint belongs to. Sorry, a little bit ill. Sorry. Anyway, I might just do a song about this in some future album with my solo music project. You see, while healing is the primary subject of the work with the healer's knife, manipulative and malevolent magic still make an appearance in these accounts, right? So there's many motives to curse someone when you are a sorcerer or a cunning person. Don't take this the wrong way. I constantly have to underline this. I'm merely providing information that comes from the sources, right? In the sources. However, as spoken in the previous video, there are other cunning folk, right, that send harmful magic to people, be those common people or cunning persons themselves. And sometimes it must be sent back to the sender as a counter curse or as a form of protection or just to teach them a lesson. But of course, in the sources, the several black art books and their rightful owners, not all of these people obviously were good persons, not all of them. It's not magic that corrupts people's hearts. When you already have a corrupted heart, magic or no magic, people's intention and choices are very much of their own and not pushed by some magic performance. Some people curse others solely because they can and because they are evil and rejoice with the suffering of others, as so we often see in this world, especially people in power who prey upon the powerless and the voiceless, which is exactly why they have become powerful in the first place, right? Sorry. But as we take it from these sources, presumably such intentions of cursing others in some cases were deemed warranted in the execution of justice. Sometimes people are so evil that leads others to change the course of fate by means of manipulating reality with magic in order to curse evil ones. But who are we to deal out justice? How can we truly judge others? Well, I would say that sometimes we live in horrifying moments in history in which truly a very powerful person or a group of very powerful people threatens all life and slaughters the innocent with impunity. In such occasions, if we truly respect life and want to see a better world for everybody, a just world, is it not our duty to do whatever it is in our power to bring about the downfall of the perverse forces that threaten life and escape justice? A question for the philosophers. Well, dear friends, I do hope this video was useful. Thank you so much for watching. See you on the next video. And as always, thanks for today. Obrigado por hoje. Until we meet again, my dear friends.